Hello there, everybody, and welcome to the entertainment headquarters, and of course, welcome to Kaiju Connections, the segment on the channel where I talk all things kaiju and large monster action from the world of cinema and television. And today we are here to talk about a movie that for the very first time I had the opportunity to watch, which for me was a very interesting watch, certainly indeed. It is known under two titles. It is, of course, known as this Frankenstein Conquers the World, and it is also known as Frankenstein versus Baragon. And to talk about this film, I brought on a ragtag of fellow content creators and kaiju enthusiasts. Of course, we have creative writer and amateur filmmaker Mr. Daniel Miller from Dan Filmin.
Hello.
Welcome to Kaiju Connections. And secondly, we have kaiju enthusiast. Also, he does his own film reviews and has a lot of his own unique kaiju content, like reviews of the classic makings of movie books. Mr. Walter Ross.
How doing today?
And finally, we have Mr. Sci-Fi Sentry from the Sci-Fi Society himself. Welcome.
Thank you. Welcome.
So, as you know, this is a film I have not seen before. Obviously, I've known about it for many, many years. And I had seen a film previous to this one, which is actually the sequel to this one, which was War of the Gargantuans. But of course, this particular film is the one that came before it. And so let's talk about it. Let's get into the detailings of, well, what would you like to call it? Do you want to call it Frankenstein Conquers the World, or would you rather call it Frankenstein versus Baragon?
Either way, I mean, whatever title you pick is going to be the correct one. I mean, because it's been used so many multiple times. So, it really doesn't matter.
Well, I think we'll call it Frankenstein Conquers the World, because that's what it was, the title that I had seen it under when I first, decided to check this film out for the very first time. And so let's talk about a little bit of the details. So Frankenstein versus Baragon, also known as Frankenstein Conquers the World, is a 1965 kaiju film directed by Ishio Honda with special effects by E.G. Takaburaya. Is that right?
Yeah,
see, I could not see the names. I butcher the fuck out of them every time I try. The film stars Nick Adams, Kuri Mizuno, and Taiyo Takashima, and with Koji Furuhara as Frankenstein and Haru Nakajima as Baragon. An international co-production of Japan and the United States, it was the first collaboration between Toho Ltd and Henry J. Saperstein. In the film, scientists investigate the origins of a mystery boy and his resistance to radiation that makes him grow to a monstrous size, with the second monster ravages the countryside. So it really has an interesting concept, and the fact that when you think of Frankenstein, you think of the likes of you think of the likes of the Universal Monster Studio films,
like Boris Karloff and
yes.
Jack Pierce. That was it, because he did the makeup for the Karloff Frankenstein.
Yeah, so when you think of those films, you think of Frankenstein as a normal-sized human being. So when you hear about that, they're actually doing a kaiju film with the Frankenstein monster, immediately your eyes wonder and your brain starts to work, how the hell are they going to make this happen? But the great thing about this film is the plot and how they bring it together. So, first things first, it's the first question I ask every time I do one of my streams is, when was the first time you seen Frankenstein Conquers the World? So we'll start from the bottom and we'll head up to the top. So, Mr. Sci-Fi Sentry.
Man, I saw this one probably a little bit after I had seen my first Godzilla movie. So it was probably when I was maybe 7. I was probably 7 when I first saw it, and I saw it on I think I went to an aunt's house, and they were playing it, and they were all into it too. You know, they were into the movie, and oh, it's Frankenstein because it has the word Frankenstein in it. So it was that, yeah. But that was the first time I saw it. I was probably 7. I was probably about 7 or 8, close to that. But I was mesmerized by it.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Walter Ross.
Well, I actually saw it in bits and pieces in the late 80s, believe it or not. I wouldn't officially really watch it until the late 2000s. And that was my, I mean, because like I say, when I first heard of this film, you know, I was just kind of like, this is a kind of weird film because you got a Caucasian actor amongst, you know, Asian actor performers. It's like, that's very weird, you know, in my opinion, you know, but I just saw like bits and pieces of it back then. But when I officially watched it, when I got the DVD of it, you know, that's when I officially watched it in late 2000s. And I was just kind of like, wow, I could see why people gasp by what this thing is, because it's like, this is very unusual, but very entertaining at the same time.
Mm. Yes. So, yes, it's like, yes, have both got the same DVD. I haven't got a fucking DVD inside of this thing.
I gotta see it.
Because I'm not jealous at all. At all. At all. Anyway, Mr. Daniel Miller, when did you first see this film?
This was around, I want to say 2017, because I was at Comic-Con, and I mean, keep in mind, before the Criterion box set came along and before the Monsterverse took off, anything Godzilla related, whether it be movies or figures, it's impossible to find. So I was really surprised to find that one vendor in the entire convention selling Frankenstein Conquers the World, along with Astro Monster and Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster on DVD. So of course I was like, well, you'd be crazy to pass this up. Go get it, damn it. So yeah, I got it, and first thing I did when I got home was I took out the Japanese version, because I was going to watch them first, the Japanese, then the American version. And what I ended up seeing was the international cut of the Japanese version, and I was like, wow, this is actually a really interesting take on the whole Frankenstein creature from a kaiju perspective, because I had a vague memory of Frankenstein Conquers the World, because I found out that Baragon, after seeing him in Destroy All Monsters, made his first appearance in Frankenstein. And so I went into it knowing very little, and was like, wow, concept is really amazing, and execution, that's also really good. And yeah, I've liked it ever since, and I've watched it again recently, both the theatrical and international versions, and I'm quite intrigued. Yeah, there he is. You know, I was quite intrigued by the two endings, which we'll get to later on in the talk.
Absolutely. As for myself, like I mentioned, I watched this film for the very first time and ended watching it about 10 minutes ago. So, and what can I say? It really took me by surprise. it is a film that, you know, when I first heard about it, I had kind of eye rolls. You think, you know, you get a lot of these daft, stupid B movies, you know, that you see like on Tubi and all this, like, you know, Bigfoot versus Mega Shark and, you know, Super Python versus, I don't know, the giant squid. You know, you've got all these stupid,
Right.
really ridiculous, really bad CGI, stupid plotted, you know, versus movies with iconic or well-known like creatures of like you know, urban legends or like legendary creatures like the Loch Ness monster, things of that nature.
You can
So
catch
when
them
you,
on TV on Legend.
yes,
Yeah.
you can. We have a channel. Yes, we do. We in the UK have a channel called Legend. The Legend, and it shows all these crazy type of movies. So we don't need Tubi. You see, that's one thing the UK has over America. We have a shitty channel
Yeah.
that shows all the shitty, crappy B movies. Why it's called the Legend Channel, I have no idea. But anyway,
Because terrible movies are legendary.
I wanted to add, my brother Kevin, that when I got this movie, I got it in a set on Amazon with Godzilla versus Megalon with this one,
mhm.
and you guys won't even believe how much I got it for. Like I got it back like in 2017 or 2018, and I got both those movies for
$10.
$8.99.
Ah, that's it.
That's pretty good.
That is.
Yes.
For the set. So yeah, but I got it on Amazon. But I didn't know. See, Amazon at that point here was in uh my brother Walt can attest to this. When Amazon started out, man, I started shopping Amazon since 2007, and I started seeing all these Godzilla movies, man, and they were selling them for dirt cheap. So I just took advantage of it, and I got all of them. So I just wanted to throw
Well,
it
I
out there.
don't blame you. Any kaiju decent one, you know, all of that jazz. Just buy them while you still can on physical media, because one day it's all going to go away. Hopefully it doesn't, but the way streaming's going, you never know. But going back to what I was saying, when I first heard of all these, you know, these ridiculous B-type movies, obviously this is from the you know, this is like from the back end of when the kaiju genre was like really at its, you know, peak with all the Godzilla and the Gameras. So knowing that, I thought, you know what, this isn't going to be just, you know, one of these silly little B movies. And to my amazing surprise, after just one watch of this film is really fantastically well done, especially via the plot. The plot is very inventive to me. In the opening sequence of this film, I'll be honest, is probably one of the best opening sequences I've seen in a Toho kaiju film. So, would you like to get the ball rolling and start the plot off for us and our amazing audience?
My pleasure. So the plot begins in 1945 in I think it's pronounced Frankfurt in Germany. And of course, World War II is nearing its end with the Allied forces going against the Nazi war machine. In a mansion or a very large house, there's a man who either think is Professor Frankenstein in his laboratory, and he is visited by some Nazi soldiers who give him instructions saying that his project is being taken over to Japan. And I just want to say, in this opening scene, there's not a single line of dialogue. It's just the background sounds of the bombs falling and the lab. And that right there, to me, that's probably the most impactful opening to any movie, really. Not having anyone talking is just letting the soundscape speak for what we see as well as what we hear. So yeah, he reluctantly gives them the key to the box that has his experiment, and then in a fit of rage or upset, he just trashes his lab. We then follow the Nazis who bring the package onto a submarine. They leave Germany, and it's I like to think of this as like a little bit of foreshadowing with Indiana Jones, how they have that transition
Definitely.
of the world map
Yeah.
trail showing them going down the coast and then meeting off the in the Indian Ocean.
I definitely felt that, and that's why I said before, this had one of the best openings of any of I love some of the openings of the earlier kaiju films from the Showa era, but this had just such a unique opening, because it was different to what I had seen like in a lot of the kaiju movies. Like you see, I love that scene at the very beginning where they see like the snow falling, and you can see like the war zone, and you can hear the bombs, and then it cuts to the lab, and then you see that entire sequence with no dialogue, and them literally just it's all to do with bringing intenseness to the scene and all of that stuff, and you feel it, you feel the emotion, you feel that the atmosphere. And then when it gets into the that sequence with the boat, and you see it leaving Germany, and you follow the map round, just brilliant. And like you say, it definitely felt like it was like something that could have potentially inspired Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
And another thing I noticed throughout the film is the way that they had the different title shots of where it was showing different locations. So you like with Okinawa and all of that, and the different areas throughout the film, throughout Japan. That reminded me of like the title screens when, like, in the most recent Godzilla X Kong film, when he was like in Cairo, it would come up Cairo, then it would say Gibraltar. It felt very much that could have been inspired by the title shot sequences in this potential film as well.
Yeah.
That could have been.
Mm-hmm. So what's your opinion, Walter, on the opening of the movie?
Well, that's the thing about this film. And see, this is one thing I love about films that take a risk and making a story where you don't expect where it's going to start. Because to me, that's what makes a good film. What is its starting point? And this one in particular starts at a point where you wouldn't even think about. Starts in World War II, during Germany battle, forces, fighting German forces, and then it shuffles to this, scientist. And I don't know if y'all noticed that when I was taking my glasses, I was doing how eccentric the doctor looked. He's just like, it's like he's listening to the heart and everything. He's very, I'm like, okay, dude, you just
it looks like your eyes are gonna pop out of your freaking
head. Dude, that's what I'm saying. He's like, his eyes are gonna pop out like this. I'm just like, okay, you're on that stuff too hard right there, But no,
I looked at you. What the hell? I like, what the hell is wrong with Walter? Like, what the hell?
That's the reason I was doing that earlier when Dan was telling the ending of it. But no, that's the fact that this is a kaiju film, and you're like, okay, we're starting in a area where it's like this historic moment is going on, and then we just interjecting some fiction, which is this scientist, pretty much Frankenstein most likely, creating something, and the fact that the German allies come and take what he got, and he's look, as Daniel said, he's resilient to give it up, but he's like, okay, you're going to take it. Let me give you the key. Bye, and then he just trashes his lab. So where it goes from there, traveling from Germany to the Indian Ocean and meeting up with a Japanese boat. It's just like, okay, where's this going? Where are we going with this? So they transfer that. I guess we could say a trunk or whatever.
Yeah,
best describe it.
Like a storage trunk. Yeah,
storage trunk. Basically, Basically, I'm still laughing when Sci-Fi Sentry. When I was looking, I'm like,
And I was like,
sorry,
what?
it just catches me off guard now. I'm thinking about it, but the fact that they transfer the storage luggage to them, I was like, okay, what's still going on here? Then all of a sudden, we see Americans. I'm guessing it's Americans dropping bombs on, the U-boats. And it's blowing it up. They get out. I mean, the Japanese boat gets out of the way. They haul ass. They leave as fast as they can. And this is where we actually do get a little bit of dialogue from the Germans in the U-boat, and they're actually speaking German. But we finally get the dialect from the Japanese talking about where I think it's the Kawhi. I'm messing up his name real bad. The character of one of the sailors in the boat, he's saying, "What's so important about this damn box? What's in here so important that they sacrifice themselves in their boat just to give it to us?" You're kind of like, "What's going on here?" So it like I say, where is this? I'm really thinking to myself, where is this going? Because this is a kaiju film, but it's like it's not starting out as they say, a regular kaiju film, and I feel that's a good thing because you don't know where
it's what made it unique and stand out.
Yeah.
Because straight away, you know how like general kaiju films start. There's always like you see like an explosion, or you hear like thunder, or you hear a roar, and they have like some sort of explanation before it builds up to the reveal of the kaiju. Where this, like you see,
it's nighttime. It's nighttime or raining. Nighttime or raining. One of the two.
So
right.
Yes, so this actually felt different, very different. It felt like it was going to be like some sort of action adventure war movie in the very beginning. And then what you're building up to, Walter, is where they're going to start this experiment in Hiroshima, and suddenly because it's Hiroshima, it gets hit by the bomb. And obviously that's where they've got like the Frankenstein's body or the experiment there, and because of that, the whole Hiroshima, we know the events of what happened in Hiroshima. It's historic. It's a part of human history. So the radiation fallout, and the atomic bomb that was dropped, and then suddenly the film skips to 15 years.
Yeah.
And everything seems to be, healing after the war. You've got a group of different scientists at is it the Hiroshima Institute?
Yeah.
I believe. Yeah.
And this is where we're introduced to our three main stars. So you have, obviously, there's Nick Adams, there's Kumi, I can't even pronounce her surname.
Kumi Mizuno.
Yeah.
Yes, Kumi Mizuma, who's basically, her Nick Adams, who can, not forget their legendary.
They had a thing going on during the time.
Yeah, yes, it was like, who could, not remember their legendary pairing in, Invasion of the Astro Monsters.
Yeah.
Another amazing pairing. And then, of course, alongside them, you have Tadeo Takashima, who's playing Dr. Kawachi. So for me, he became somewhat like the Dr. Frankenstein of this film, because he's very much interested in the experiment, or when they discover what they call boy at the time, but then gets referred to as Frankenstein later on, which, he becomes obsessed with the idea of experimenting on this child, or this human who has this unusual growth spurt. But we're getting a bit ahead of ourselves. So after that, they are busy experimenting on different, experiments, all to do with the fallout, I guess, of Hiroshima. and
Mhm.
cancer victims and trying to find a cure to cancer. At the same time that's going on, there's like animals that remains are being found, like rabbits and whatever, near the village, near this institute. And then it's suddenly revealed that the thing that's behind all of these kind of animal slaughters is a young human, but he's not like a normal human. There's something different about him. He doesn't look right. He looks, slightly deformed, I would say, we could say, with the high head and the hair. And it turns out,
Black eyes.
yes, and the black eyes. And it turns out to be, boy who, what they call boy, who eventually will become Frankenstein.
Yeah.
And we have to remember that this character, believe it or not, is actually supposed to be Caucasian.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing. I mean, I know he's being played by a Japanese woman, but the character itself is supposed to be Caucasian.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. How would you feel if they did something crazy and they actually put Nick Adams is the role of the Frankenstein monster? That would have been an interesting twist.
Yeah.
That would have been interesting. That's as crazy as this film is. That would have been a very interesting twist.
Yeah, just because I say it to you, because when you said he's meant to be Caucasian, but
That's not.
no, this is Caucasian.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's why I say when you watch it, like I say, they say it's supposed to be a white boy, it's supposed to be a white child, but I'm like, that's a very Asian white boy there.
Yeah, we got like, okay, we got a Hispanic, we got a black man, we got an Irish man, and we got a white man. So it's like, I mean, everybody's because like when I saw that, it was just funny. It's like, oh, he's supposed to be definitely Caucasian. I'm like, that's the most Japanese Caucasian guy I've ever seen in my life.
Okay.
But back then, I'm pretty sure they did that because it's more believable and they could have gone. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I'm just going to say, like, it was a co-production between an American company and a Japanese company, and it mostly was a Toho-produced film, I would guess, because it was filmed over in Japan. So the fact that, Nick Adams at the time was probably the only white actor they had over there. So to find another Caucasian, British actor or American actor that could actually speak Japanese and do the dialogue and kind of bring the plot forward might have been slightly, difficult to find. And also you've got to think it's the budget of the movie as well.
Yeah.
So DJ Anubis is in the building. Mr. DJ Anubis.
Hello.
Yes, he is here. He is watching us. Apparently we are all sexy bitches.
I think right. What? We are.
Yes, our fearless leader of the Metal Tavern.
Yes, give a shout out to the Metal Tavern Radio. Absolutely. Please subscribe, share, and like to his channel as well, those that watch. But he does have an interesting, if this was actually made in today's climate, do you believe this would be woke?
Making Frankenstein a woman? Yeah. Making Frankenstein a woman? No. That I couldn't go with that.
Yeah, well that's another point. But anyway, who would like to continue with the plot? So the Fang boy, and then
Walter, go for it, man.
Well, I mean, we're still dealing with the poison. I mean, radiation poisoning of these Hiroshima survivors. And Nick Adams' character and the other two. They're trying to see some kind of results. With this. But no, knowing we know that, just keep ahead of the fact that we found out about this. Kevin was saying there's been dead remains of animals, in places, and they pretty much know that they come to find out that it's just Wiley, this as they call it, a wharf, waif,
Waif, yeah.
type child, and he's just randomly eating. He's not eating people. He's just eating things that give him strength and everything. And there's that one scene where Nick Adams' character goes to Weasel's apartment, and he's telling her, I feel that I just need to stop doing because I'm not bringing anything. Hey, what's up? What's up, Jake?
What's up, Jake Hall? What's up?
Right. But no, he's telling her that I think all our work is for naught. It seems like maybe I should go back to the States and start up something different.
Start over. He said start over.
What? I'm sorry.
He said start over. Yeah.
Yeah. And you hear this, all of a sudden you hear this automobile hit something, and it's like the driver looks out and walks out and see the boy that got hit, and it's the boy, of course. And as you can tell, he's trying to get up, but he's stumbling because he's been hit pretty hard.
Mm-hmm.
So Camiso's character gives I'm not for sure. I mean, I guess it's some meat or whatever, some kind of food. Tosses it to the ground, and he takes it and runs away. And we don't see them again until fast forward 1 year later from that event, and we wonder what happened to the child, what happened to him. So it plays on knowing that, and this is something I think I need to bring up. There's one character that made a pillow for Nick Adams' character, and we find out that she has passed away.
Yes.
So
it does have some very serious dark undertones in this. Like, it does deal with, the radiation fallout. It deals with cancer, and then obviously you're seeing, a patient with that condition passing away. So it does have some very strong, elements to this, and some very poignant stories and real in-depthness when it comes to that, situation with the radiation fallout from Hiroshima. And, it kind of did set kind of a tone of the film right at the beginning. And, like you say, it was kind of heartbreaking to see Nick Adams' character, who's clearly just wants to be a good doctor, who wants to help people. And especially that scene where he gets handed the pillow from the sick patient who, she made it especially for him for probably all the work he's done helping her.
Yeah, because he knows that even though he's doing his best, she knows she's going to die. And the comedian's character said she did finish it for you because she knows in her heart that her time is limited.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely, man.
So I believe after the boy, things are still happening, in like the village area, animals are being killed, and then you get to the beach, like a beach area, and there's like villagers, kind of like on the hunt for whatever's doing this. And this is when they discover boys living in a cave on the beach. But I believe he's grown, and he's slightly grown bigger than he was before.
Yeah, that's right.
And
Slightly bigger, not that big. I mean, he was like maybe 12 years old the year before. He's like teenager now.
So he's slightly bigger, and obviously they decide to kind of save him and bring him back. But obviously when they bring him back, you've got Nick Adams' character, who was called James Borden. He like wants to like look into the boy because he's like resistant to like the radiation they've noticed, and he's thinking, well, I could do some experiments and research to discover how maybe that will help me find a cure for cancer and the radiation poison. And then you've got the character of the actor Tadeo Takashima, who plays Dr. Karaji.
Koichi.
Koichi, he basically he wants to do the same, but he turns into Dr. Frankenstein, where he wants to do more than the experiment. He wants to do it in a dark way. And then obviously you've got Kumi Mizumi as Dr. Tagami. She's basically becomes a stepmother to this young child. She takes it upon herself to help nurture him, grow him. And she's trying to learn him and teach him things. And there's that particular scene as well as the film progresses where he's got a television and he's looking at the television and they're watching him, studying him, and something happens on the television where somebody shouts out loud and he picks the television up and he throws it.
Yeah.
And they realize he's getting bigger. He's starting to get maybe frustrated or more, not being able to, control. In the end, they end up locking him up in a steel cage.
Yeah.
And that's more or less for his protection and probably for the protection of people around them.
Yeah.
So, who would like to carry on from there?
Well, I just want this. This is one of the better parts where it starts to goes that little, not too much horror, but now that he's in the cage and now he has they have him chained to the cage floor and now they're they were gonna put him in a zoo because he was getting too big, but they're like, no, he's human, we can't just put him in a zoo. So they start to take more pictures of him. They start to he's not really good with light, and then he gets more agitated because more people start showing up, and he's always hungry and he's agitated, and he actually, some of those guys die. Once he actually before Suyoko, Dr. Suyoko is noticing that the steel chain that's wrapped around his hand is starting to eat into his hand because he keeps growing. So once he gets out of that cage, when he's getting really frustrated with the photographers and Dr. Kawaji's there, and trying to observe, and he's getting angry, and then he literally just literally rips off his own hand with from the chain, and then he throws down the whole cage door, which is pretty much a big cell, and that's when he finally goes loose, and they see when they everybody's running, he actually kills some of the photographers, and once they see his sure size when he breaks through the wall, and he's much bigger, his size just keeps every day keeps growing bigger and bigger and bigger, and the more he consumes, the bigger he gets. But I like it when they show the miniatures, and they show his actual scale of how big he is, and it's really cool. And then they always go back to that part of the dynamic between Frankenstein and a woman. Maybe he sees this woman as a nurturing figure, or she's kind of the person that calms him down. And then that's what I like. They go back to that dynamic because that's his connection to humanity is through Suyoko. That's his connection. And when he sees her in her apartment, and he doesn't hurt her or nothing. He just looks at her and he's sad and he's frustrated, and then he just he sees that he's growing. He kind of sees what he's turning into. I guess you can say he's kind of realizing what he's turning into. So he just goes. He goes and runs.
Yeah, he's turning into the monster that they think he is, basically. And like you've mentioned, the one great thing I loved about this film, in particular some of the scenes, is obviously when you do a kaiju film, you have the giant suit nations with the amazing suit actors and the different kaiju designs. So when you think of Frankenstein monsters, unless they actually did a proper suit and made him look horrific, similar to what they did with the War of the Gargantuans, how else can you make Frankenstein stand out, and how can you make it believable? So I loved how during the production of this film and some of the scenes, how they were able to, you would see Frankenstein standing up and you would have like near, say, a wall, and it would have a tiny little window. So that would emphasize he's grown and he's that tall. And then the next thing you would see is like an actress looking out of that window.
Yeah.
Or if he's walking down the street, he would pass a car and it would be like a miniature of a car. And then the next thing you would have the actors in the car looking out. And they would see like a giant foot walk past. And it was great how they did all that, to emphasize the size of Frankenstein and make it believable, especially for the time it was made in the 1960s.
Yeah.
And can I show you something right quick, y'all? Kevin and everything. Just want to point this out because when the sci-fi mentioned miniatures, I'm like, dude, I'm just like, this is one of the things I love about this picture is the miniature work in this picture is so great. I mean, miniatures before were doing well, but here to emphasize Frankenstein's size, you really want to you really want to show this. And this book right here that I got at G-Fest, it has one particular. I mean, it has many pictures, but I'm just going to point out just the one where it shows the size of the actor on the set. That's a set. That's a miniature set of the actor himself, and where he's at. I mean, it's an actual location, but it's all miniaturized. That's one of the things I love about this, especially this sequence here, where all the surroundings that you see for the actor to walk on, that is all miniature. They built all that, and dude. I mean, because like I say, I'm a person who loves behind the scenes stuff and everything. But when you see the craftsmanship and the way they made all this, just for maybe waited 1 or 2 minutes of screen time for this particular character on this, it's like that's the joy of knowing that they put their heart and soul in making it. And you got to remember too, since this is a co-production between Japan and United States, they were able to get more money from, because Japan, even though it was pretty much a good stable outlet as far as making movies, the money that they got from the United States helped in building these sets. So it's just seeing that kind of mixture of a person that you could normally say emphasize the size of someone, and then knowing that they built all of that, it's just like it's mind blowing because you can't fathom it, but that's how they did that stuff back then.
And it's an art form of filmmaking that's lost today because everything is so CGI heavy. I think the last great film I can remember off the top of my head, which was a mixture of, I guess, suitmation and makeup and aesthetics as well as miniatures and CGI, was The Lord of the Rings. That for me was the last known to my memory great film that had that. And we have joining us Anthony Jordan from Anthony Jordan Movies and Gaming, and I do agree with these comments. They went to the trouble of building all that, and nowadays they'll make wind blowing in the grass CGI. Something went terribly wrong. Yes, basically, Anthony, what I would say is filmmaking has become lazy.
Yeah.
Yep.
I second that.
Yeah.
It's become lazy. But
I also, I just want to quickly add in, because when we're talking about the miniatures, I want to talk about the Frankenstein Kaiju. Although it's more human than monster, it also is a lot more expressive. And because it has a lot more expressions, it's more relatable than, say, Baragon or any of the other kaiju from the other movies. And I think that not only makes it more relatable to the characters within the movie, like the scientists, but it also makes the Frankenstein kaiju relatable to us, the viewers, because we can read facial expressions. We can see when he's happy, we can see when he's angry, when he's lonely, when he's frustrated. Yeah, with kaiju, there's not really
Not that
much.
much, yeah. I mean, that's a good point. I mean, that's a good point you're making out there, 'cause especially when Frankenstein looked at you know Camiso's character when she says what's wrong with him, and you just see him just do this slight kind of shame, kind of sorry, kind of it's you see that effect in his face, I mean that you say you can't get that from just regular kaiju because it's like human beings, no matter what size they are, we give off an incredible amount of information without any verbal kind of intellect.
It's all body language and facial expressions. You can show emotion not with using words, but by sheer, facial expressions, your body language, a look from your eyes and how you, anything like that. And how they've kind of made this Frankenstein's monster similar to like the Universal monster version, but also with the plot, especially with the female doctor who like he's guardian, it does give you similar take on it, like say King Kong, where he was sympathized with the lady, with the female character. So it's like, because you can relate to Kong because he's very humanized, especially in the MonsterVerse version. And they've kind of done that with Frankenstein. So who would like to continue the plot? Daniel, would you? Yeah, go ahead.
So yeah, as everything with Frankenstein is going on with Dr. Bowen and co-examining him, there's an oil refinery that experiences what at first the workers think is an earthquake, but then one of the characters who earlier on was a commander on the submarine delivering the box to Hiroshima, he sees something happening in the crevice where the ground has opened up. There's this light glowing and disappearing. Yes, this character here. Yeah, and then all of a sudden it disappears, and it's like, wait, whoa, there's something else going on in this movie. What's going on? And then after Frankenstein escapes, there's a lot of commotion going on in the rural areas, like in the mountainous regions of Japan, where whole villages are just being wiped out by something large, and by default, they assume Frankenstein is responsible. But we, the audience, know it's actually Baragon, who in this movie made his debut. And I want to say that the scenes, and just adding on to what Walter said about the miniatures, I also want to put this onto the miniature animals as well. They look fantastic in this movie, especially the scene where Baragon is feasting on the animals as he's rampaging. All the chicken feathers just falling from his mouth. It's very grim, but it's also really effective as well. Especially the miniature shot of the miniature horse inside the stable as Baragon just rips it to pieces.
Yeah,
It's amazing considering how much money Toho had to make these kinds of movies. They put in a great deal of effort, not just in the miniatures, but also in the actual animal effects themselves.
Puppetry, the puppetry, yeah.
That's it, the puppetry. And it's also, really good. It's also Ifukubi's soundtrack for Baragon's Rampage is also fantastic as well. And I also like how they reused Varan's sound effect for Baragon.
Yes. I had a feeling, when as soon as I heard the roar from Baragon, I was like instantly recognizable. Where
Gorosaurus also uses that one too. Gorosaurus also uses that.
Yeah. Also in Ultra Q and Ultraman, some of the kaiju reuse the same sound effects.
Yeah.
But you realize that all those sound effects of those fish is nothing more than a rehash or a remix of Godzilla's original roar. I don't know if you know
Yeah.
that. You can
Yeah.
you can hear a few beats, and you definitely can hear it in Baran, you know, when he roars. So, but
Guitar string goes a long way, bro.
that's
Yeah.
true. It does.
Yeah. Uh-huh. No, but I wanted to add what Daniel was saying on the miniatures and the puppets. For the time, man, for the time in the '60s, dude, that looked like, I agree with Daniel on that. That looked as realistic as it could possibly be for the time. So I'm pretty sure, like, my grandparents and my parents, and they saw when they were young, they said, "Oh wow, that looks real," or "That looks really good," and
Yeah.
because there was no type of real special effects. All the special effects were all movie magic effects that were made by the camera mostly. So that's why I appreciate this film, because I
Definitely.
just like, yeah, I like the puppetry. Baragon looks great, and Frankenstein. There's little things I could say you could have improved on, but I just gotta say, man, I was going for Baragon. So
Mhm.
I was gonna go
Well,
for Baragon, man.
so obviously after the revelation that there could be a potential other monster out there, the Japanese government are wanting to kill Frankenstein, who's now grown to he's gigantic by this point.
Yeah,
And he's like going around different parts of the countryside, and you see him feasting on animals. They find they find like cow carcasses. At the same time that's going on, there's been a rumble elsewhere. And as you've mentioned, we see our first glances of Baragon feasting on horses and chickens. And you know what? I had only ever seen Baragon for a split second in Destroy All Monsters. And then, of course, when he was in JMK. And obviously, this is the film he made his debut. And now, after I've seen Baragon in this, and this is prior to, I hadn't seen him in this. I had only ever seen him what I had seen him in. I think what a lot of lost potential in Baragon.
yeah,
Because
Yeah.
what an amazing debut. Fucking eating a horse, destroying a farm, eating chickens, eating pigs, kicking the shit out of farmers' lands. And then the next scene after that, he's reduced to like a small little cameo in Destroy All Monsters until they eventually brought him back in JMK. Everyone loves Anguillus. He is like the sidekick to Godzilla. But I think Baragon could have had so much more potential if given the right opportunity.
Yeah.
Really, a lot of these kaiju could have. I mean, Varan was, like I say, Varan was another one. He was in, Destroy All Monsters, but he was not even in there for like maybe a split second. He was in there for like just maybe a second or two, and it was like, that's it. And it's a lot of these. I feel that the creatures that they made back then that didn't stand out as much, or put it like this, that didn't bring in the revenue that that Godzilla or like Mothra or Ghidorah brought in, they probably say, okay, that's just a standalone. We're not going to bring them back. But someone saw some potential in them eventually, because they brought them back partly in the Haste Age series and in the Millennium series. So I mean, I'm looking forward, if they ever do bring Varan, or even I'm not for sure, someone like Titanosaurus into something, features like that would be a blast, because it shows that these creatures have a standing for a reason. They're still in here for a reason. They got the longevity for us to be appreciative of.
And
I was going to say, I'm sorry, Kevin. I was going to say this. Now that we're talking about Varan and Anguirus and Baragon, like, I'm pretty sure I told you guys that I pitched this to you, but I wanted to, when I get a chance, I want to draw, because I still draw somewhere. I want to draw Godzilla like in a very, like imposing, like intimidating stance, and then on the bottom, since they're all quadrupedal, I'll have Varan and Baragon on each side, and Anguirus in the middle, and then I just want to put like a big logo on the top saying Godzilla's Dogs of War, because they're all quadrupedal. and then and they're like Godzilla's looking intimidating, but all of them are like they're like in a fighting position in front of Godzilla. Baran, Anguirus, and Baragon, and they're looking fierce, and they're all quadrupedal. So you
Cry
see like
Harris, and
yeah,
let's
so like
meet the dogs of war.
yeah, Godzilla's
Yeah,
all
I have seen a fan art similar to that where it's Kong and he's got skull crawlers on chains.
yeah.
Wow.
I've seen that, so it's a very similar idea, but I can't wait to see it when you do eventually get around to drawing it. But so up to this point, obviously, we have skipped over some elements of the plot because obviously there's a lot to talk about. But I really wanted, to be honest, get to the good stuff, which is eventually the meeting of Frankenstein and Baragon. And because, I'll be honest, up to this point, as much as I was loving the interaction with the humans and the Frankenstein character, and I understood what they were doing, they were trying to get you to sympathize with the Frankenstein monster. They were trying to build a bond with it, similar to Kong. But in the back of my mind, especially the fact that this had the title in Japan of Frankenstein versus Baragon, the back of my mind, I was going, where the fuck is Baragon? Where the fuck is he? That was what I was thinking in the back of my mind.
Kind of like where the fuck is Godzilla in 2014 Godzilla?
Yeah.
But I was actually getting to that.
Okay.
Because you see, for me personally, I love the plot. I love the build. I love the fact even when this character, when obviously I said he turns into kind of Dr. Frankenstein, when this character, I even love. Yes, I absolutely love the scene as well, where you actually see him go back to Germany and he's talking to the elderly scientist who talks about the Frankenstein heart, which was blew up in Hiroshima, which obviously evolved into Frankenstein, and how he says you need to sever the hand off, and you're seeing the hand crawling across the floor and stuff like that. Loved all that, but in the back of my mind, I thought the pacing's strong, but I also thought the pacing was slow, and it was starting to slow down, and that's probably my only fault with this. I think it does have pacing issues. It takes a while to build up to what you want to see, which is the fights. And even after you see Baragon's initial appearance, he disappears again.
Yeah.
A bit like fucking Godzilla and Godzilla 14 at the airport scene. You see that stand where you see his face and he roars and you think, get in, you're getting to somewhere. And then he doesn't turn up to the last 15 minutes of the film.
Yeah, I get what they're trying to do. Is like they're teasing in a sense. Like there's something that's like, oh wow, can't wait to see more of this. Then it's cut away to something else. Then you come back and says, oh, you're actually going to show it this time? Oh, for God's sake, show me the bloody thing.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
the build up. Oh, I'm sorry, Daniel. Like the build up, they want to build it up, and I kind of did like it. I was like, Kevin, I gotta agree with you, man. Once like the pacing slowed down with Frankenstein, I was like, okay, I'm a little tired of Frankenstein, man. Where's Baragon?
They had built up the Frankenstein. They had built up the idea of Frankenstein. I got it. I loved that. I loved how he developed from this heart from the original Frankenstein's monster, and because of the Hiroshima experiment and because of the explosion, it evolved the heart into a fully functional being. Loved it. I found though when him who I've just said the Dr. Frankenstein wannabe, and he sawed off his arm and then it started crawling. For me, I didn't really understand that part of the plot. I think it was time wasting. Yeah. And that was me negative. But then once we get through there, Frankenstein's now hiding in the woods. Yeah, I think, well, I don't know, was it Osaka? And then you have Baragon, and then you have that character who revealed himself, who revealed that there was another monster.
Yeah. And remember, Baragon, I'm sorry, Daniel. I'm sorry to talk about. Remember, we see Baragon eventually when he attacks these comfort huts, where people, youngsters are vacationing and everything, and he attacks those buildings and everything, and then, of course, disappeared. But this is before he attacks that farm of chickens and pigs, and of course the a little horsey, you know. But no, I mean it's crazy, you know, knowing that.
I agree with that.
Yes, I agree, Anthony.
Because I think it would have
Yeah.
been a great David
They
versus
could have.
Goliath type film.
Mm.
But
No,
no,
but I was gonna say for Daniel, man. Daniel, I didn't mean to, I didn't mean to interrupt you, man, when you were saying.
Oh, no, that's right.
Awesome,
Like,
Jake.
I know what you meant, because that's what I'm saying. I have to go back. I have to agree with Kevin again. Like, I kind of got tired. I mean, I sympathize with Frankenstein, but I wasn't too very impressed with this look and that, and then and the story was good, building with Dr. Boyne, and then with Suyako, and then with Kawaji, and going through the whole thing of him living in caves, and then scaring children, and then now he makes it up to freaking almost nearly 55 feet or 60 feet or whatever, and then Baragon, as Daniel was saying, oil field, and then coming into other, like you said, other forests, cabins, comfort huts and everything. And I think he eats the people too. I mean, I think he eats everything. He eats or consumes or kills everyone there. I think, just in my mind, but I think he does that. But it's still a good. It's still, like, I know they try to put the narrative of Frankenstein being kind of it's spooky and stuff like that, but once they started showing more Baragon, and it was building them up, they started showing them more. That's where, okay, now I think everybody's interest was peaked. You know what I mean?
And once you get past that, where Frankenstein's on their own and he nearly gets attacked by the Japanese Defense Force, this is when I'm just going to call him wannabe Frankenstein, wannabe Dr. Frankenstein. He actually, like I say, he's kind of like the nutty professor type of character in this. He then decides and reveals his plans when they're on the search for Frankenstein, that he wants to blind Frankenstein, kill Frankenstein. He doesn't want to save him like the other two. And he wants to, blind him, experiment on him, take his heart and his brain, which, is just cruel, especially, the fact that Frankenstein's just an innocent creature that's been born out of his, no choice of his own.
He's a victim of circumstance.
Absolutely, a victim of circumstance. And then suddenly, this is where the film really fucking picks up, and this is where I'm like, yep, if I can get this on DVD, I'm gonna own this thing, or Blu-ray, whatever, because you get that amazing shot where they're looking for Frankenstein, and suddenly they hear rumbling, and out comes Baragon.
Yeah.
And this is where the film kicks up to a full fucking 900. Because this is where you finally see the reveal of Frankenstein, who then sees like characters lying on the floor after the attack from Baragon in the nearby area. And he sees them, he's full of rage, and this is when they begin the epic battle that we've waited nearly a full fucking hour and a half to see.
But let me ask you this. Let me ask you guys this. Who cannot say that the very close up of Baragon when Camizi's character falls down and his face is right in full frame?
Yeah.
Did you not say that he looks so? I mean, for me, this is me personally. He looks so cute for a kaiju. That looked like he looked like a puppy dog. It's like, just want to pet him, and everything. But he wasn't.
Yeah, he was as well.
Yeah, that's not. I mean, the way he waited, like he went up the frame, like like.
But they should have done. So they should have had his eyes wide open, and then he roars, and you just have those ears just flapping.
Yeah, something like that, But no, I mean, he was more cute than anything. I mean, true enough, the female character was screaming, but she's like, I can't be scared of that. I'm more like, oh, he's so cuddly. He's so cute. I want to pet him. But it's like I'm afraid to get my damn hand bit off.
They even make a joke of that in GMK when they see Baragon before Godzilla fights him.
Mm-hmm.
So that monster is enormous, but quite cute, really.
Oh, that's right. They do. That's right.
But the thing is, even though it probably wasn't intentionally meant to be cute, That's how I come across. But another thing, a creative bit about that scene is the effect of him zooming in.
Yeah.
And the sheer size of Baragon. But this is where things kick off and we have these amazing fight scenes. You know, they're just awesome fight scenes, which once the fights kick in, it's like a fight to the death. And obviously, Frankenstein's doing what he needs to do to try and save, you know, the girl that he wants to protect, who's like his stepmother, his adopted mother. And that's obviously a behind the scenes shot as well. Like you said, well, you've got like the smoke machines at the back there.
Oh,
on
you got it. Okay. Oh, no, you can't get it.
Yeah, it's right there too.
The back here of the DVD.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, wait a minute, hold on. I can say, wait a minute. Yeah.
Yep.
Yes, Kevin. Me and Daniel have the DVD.
Yes.
I just want to say that I like how Frankenstein's appearance changes as he grows. Like, so
this is my response. This is my response
to that. Well, I mean, this is about as close as you can go and get. You know, something like this. You know, that's
oh wow,
quick behind the scenes, and you know, little whatever.
Yeah, when charges and jumps.
So I'm gonna just
wait a minute. Yeah, this is what I'm talking about right here. This is a true behind the scenes of how they got him on wires. You know, let me back it up a little bit. On wires, on the set. You know, I mean, that's because you see him leaping. I mean, that's a power you wouldn't think that he would have. You know,
how cute he looks, so cute. Yeah,
yeah, like Baragon. Baragon is he's a very agile creature, man. He digs he digs super fast. You can see the back of his carapace in the back. Those more like spines help him travel even quicker through the earth when he's digging. So it's like, yeah, man, like I said, man, I really did enjoy his design and his Showa design. I liked his Millennium design was also good too, but I liked the Showa one and yeah, man, like dude, when I saw Baragon, dude, like, who's Frankenstein, bro? Like I'm going for Baragon. Like, yeah, I want Baragon to win, dude. I don't want freaking, you know. But that was just me though.
I'm just gonna put this shot back up because I want to show. I just want to talk about it for a bit because this is behind. Because obviously in the top there you see like the studio in the black in the corner. Then obviously that's like a green screen or something at the back.
That's a painted background. See, that's one thing about them. They paint their backgrounds so it'll be more realistic instead of being blue or green screen. You know, that's the artistry right there of making sure it's like we're showing that this is what, you know, you don't have to do a lot of composition or anything like that. You know, I like.
Yeah. And like what you call it, what I love about this shot, obviously they've got smoke. They must have like a smoke machine at the back there.
Yeah.
And then you stand and obviously
lighting that they've got in the smoke as well.
Yes, definitely. And then obviously you stand
there.
Yeah, then he's standing on like like on a set, and then I love this. I love the miniature house in the corner.
Yeah.
I just think these are the things I miss from modern day cinema. Like it's attention of detail, because I think if you had like little things like that and had great lighting effects, great background, I think it would look more realistic and it would just add an edge to a movie, or being on location in a foreign land.
Yeah. As great as CGI is, that it can create things that practical methods are hindered by, it loses attention to detail because of how rushed it is. It's very easy to just hurry something up that's not fully rendered, and you can tell that it was half baked, that it didn't have time to properly finesse. Whereas you look at all these miniatures and practical effects, it's like time and effort was put into this to make it look as good as it does.
So would you like the
I'm sorry, Kevin. I gotta add something, man. You You know what I'm gonna start calling Daniel? Literally, when he joins all these podcasts, man, I'm gonna call him the professor
He is.
Yeah.
because he knows all this stuff, man. That like, I mean, we know a lot of stuff, but he knows stuff about like he knows stuff and says stuff in detail. That's like we're all so different, but he says it in such like flash, man. It makes you seem like wow, like how come this dude freaking Daniel doesn't have his own studio, doesn't
Right?
hasn't been hired as a screenwriter or freaking producer. I'm like, how come they haven't done that yet? But nah, I just got to give props to Daniel, man, because you break it down real good.
Yes. And
Thanks,
speaking
man.
of Daniel, we're near the end of the movie. I'll let you take it home with the final of this film.
Okay. All right. The finale. Now, one little detail before I get into the finale. I like the attention to detail they've got to Frankenstein's appearance as he's changed when he escapes from the. Yeah. There's Baragon's breath. Awesome effect. See, I like it. So when Frankenstein escapes Baragon again, he's got this tattered clothing, like it's falling off him. Then when we see him later, he's got hair growing all over his back, his arms, and his shoulders, and he's wearing more like a tunic that he's got from different animals. And there's also a scene where this is where the animal puppets come in again, where he tries to set up a trap for a boar by digging a trench and laying down some trees. And it almost works until the self-defense forces fucks it up.
Mm-hmm.
But
Which
now,
they do, which they always do, because we're fucking
Yeah.
stupid humans.
so yeah, now for
Human.
the finale, the fight scene between Frankenstein and Baragon. I want to say it's brutal, but it's nowhere near as hands-on or as much as a throwdown smack fest as the Gargantuas was, which this along with Gargantuas are some of my favorite fight scenes from the Showa era. Now, yeah, Frankenstein eventually gets the upper hand on Baragon by taking a page from King Kong's book by trying to tear Baragon's jaw open, but then that doesn't work. He gets him in a headlock with his arm and just breaks his neck. Yeah, thus bringing it into the fight.
Yeah, what I loved as well in one of the particular scenes in the fight is there's a scene where Frankenstein's behind Baragon, and then suddenly Baragon starts digging, tunneling into the ground, and you see like the wind pushing back Frankenstein.
Yeah.
And then he disappears, and the next thing you hear a rumble, and then Baragon's at the top.
Yeah.
And then Frankenstein's got to climb to the top to fight him. And also during this time, because of Baragon's fire breath, which I showcased before, because of the fire breath, there has been a fire began. And I just love the scenes with this. This is the best part of the fight, where they're fighting in a ball of fire around them.
Yeah.
They're basically trapped with fire all around them, which I thought was just outstanding. Just great cinematography for its time.
This is all shot in studio. That too.
Yeah.
Just great cinematography. Like it felt, I even think that some of this fight, especially with the fire, is better than some of the fights in the Godzilla films, because it slightly stood out. Like, I think a similar fight to that is in Godzilla versus Megalon, where Jet Jaguar and Godzilla are trapped in a ring of fire, and then obviously you have the scene where Jet Jaguar carries Godzilla out of the flames, out of the fire, and then they kick the shit out of Megalon and Gigan.
Yeah.
But I want to bring up one point about that. It's funny you bring up Megalon, Kevin, because that moment when Baragon digs and Frankenstein's trying to catch him, he grabs him, but he pushed him out of the way. It's kind of funny that that's a similar moment in Godzilla vs. Megalon, where Megalon's able to dig barrel up and everything. And only difference is that when he pops up with his, drill bit, Jaguar is able to grab him, bring him up, and I thought about that when I saw that thing. It's like, this kind of reminds me of Godzilla versus Megalon. I wonder if they kind of get a like say hint or inspiration from that scene. I mean, true enough, it was only 8 years later when they did that, but I'm just wondering could they have done that? They got inspiration from that.
It's
Definitely.
possible.
And obviously, this is where, like you've mentioned, Baragon is no more to our knowledge up to this point. He's had his neck fucking snapped by Frankenstein. And then you have this amazing scene in the version I've seen, because I know you want to touch upon this as well, Daniel, when we get to it.
Right.
You have the ending of the movie is where there's like a mini earthquake, or because of the fighting and these giant creatures fighting above ground, the ground begins to collapse.
Can't take it.
And the film ends with kind of Frankenstein sinking into the ground and is being like caved in. But you know what I loved about that scene is when you see Frankenstein, he's killed Baragon sunk into the ground. It's the fighting pose. It's the pose like I am the winner, and even though he's dying, he's the winner, and he has like this smile on his face.
Yeah.
And I love the dialogue at the end where they talk about potentially him coming back. They say Frankenstein will never die because his heart will live on. Something along, and I thought that was just epic dialogue. It was an amazing quote, and it was a great way to end the film on a question mark, which, as we know, led to the sequel, War of the Gargantuans, which they were formed out of DNA and cells of the Frankenstein monsters, which somehow ended up out there. But this is the version of the movie I've seen, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I loved how it started. I loved the middle. Like I say, there was some pacing issues, and I thought the end fight was worth the payoff. But with that said, that's the version I've seen. But Daniel, you wanted to mention this. There is an alternated ending, which puzzled me when I watched, the War of the Gargantuans, how that film began with a giant storm. And then you have, a ship being attacked by a giant octopus, and then the reveal of, Gyra, the first of the Gargantuans. So you wanted to bring this up, so the floor is yours once again.
Right. So the alternate ending involves a giant octopus that crawls out of a body of water next to where Frankenstein and Baragon were fighting. Frankenstein, of course, seeing this as a threat, goes in to fight the octopus. Of course, the octopus, because Frankenstein is exhausted, has the advantage and drags Frankenstein over the cliff into the sea. And the last you see of him is Frankenstein being pulled under the water in this spout of water. And again, although it's an alternate take, the characters again question if Frankenstein will make a return in some way, shape, or form. And then you have an additional shot of the soldiers retreating from their positions. Then when in the original ending, which is what you described, Kevin, the last shot is on the Inferno in the forest. In this ending, it pans up from the water back up to the Inferno and then shows the end. Now, I want to say this, having seen this alternate ending of the Japanese version first before the theatrical ending, it makes sense if you watch War of the Gargantuas back to back. Because that explains how the Gyra Frankenstein is able to live under the water. But that does left me with one question though about the Sander Gargantua, because having watched both of them recently, I'm thinking there's probably another explanation for this, but the rationale that I'm going with is that the severed hand that Frankenstein left behind when he escaped is what became Sander. I'm not quite sure exactly how that works, if it is true, but that's what I'm thinking anyway.
Well, but obviously the severed hand apparently died. The only other explanation I have, because as you know, Sanda and Gyra are created from the DNA and cells from the original Frankenstein's monster. So my take on how Sanda was made is because with him fighting Baragon and Baragon scratching and gnawing at the original Frankenstein, some of his blood or cells could have, spat out onto the soil, which started to form a new Frankenstein as throughout the years. And that explains why he's the colour he is and he lives in the mountains, because he was formed through cells that were scattered in a mountainous area during the fight with Baragon. And you've explained beautifully how Gyra was created because Frankenstein was drowned in the ocean through the giant octopus, which then gets his comeuppance thanks to Gyra in the next film.
Yeah.
And I've seen both. I haven't seen the alternative ending. If I didn't know that this film in War of the Gargantuans were related and I seen the alternated ending, I would have thought that is really bizarre. How it's called Frankenstein versus Baragon, and they've just beat the shit out of each other. And then all of a sudden, a giant octopus out of nowhere drags him out of and pulls him into the water. I would have thought that's the weirdest ending I've ever seen. It just wouldn't have made.
I'm sorry, Kevin. It could be, like I said, it could have been a setup, but I agree with both of yours and Daniel's take on how Sanda and Gyra were pretty much created. Even though Frankenstein got a bunch, maybe he got a bunch of his flesh ripped off when he was fighting Baragon, and then it's a good take, man. I agree with both of you. I mean, it's great to think about it, and even though when I saw the theatrical Japanese version, not the theatrical, when I saw the Japanese version, I was like, oh wow, it makes sense. I mean, I still think they kind of overpowered Frankenstein. I kind of like, maybe I'm just biased, but I just thought like, man, he's a little too strong, man. I mean, Baragon's like freaking built like a freaking brick house, and freaking Frankenstein's like skinnier than when I was a kid, and he's freaking putting the beat down on Baragon, man. But I do like how like they try to they really try to show the power of Frankenstein, I guess, and make him throw around the suit, so it looks more believable, the Baragon suit. But yeah, but I'm biased, bro. I went for Baragon all the way, man. And I Frankenstein is cool, but I'm like, I'm like, no, it should have been Baragon versus Frankenstein, because really Frankenstein would have just gone smashed by Baragon. But I mean, yeah,
like
go ahead.
I haven't seen the alternative ending, but
I will say this, and this was what brings up with the alternate take, because I'm assuming that you mentioned this in your War of the Gargantuans, podcast, Kevin, that the Japanese title of War of the Gargantuans is Frankenstein's Sons, Sandra versus
Gyra.
Gyra.
That's the original Japanese title. So when you see the alternate take and think about that, maybe, and that's why I say you got to kind of spin doctor your imagination, thinking like, okay, this is how this leads into War of the Gargantuans in some kind of way, So.
Well, like I say, I haven't seen the alternated ending, but what I will say is, say I had seen this prior to seeing the War of the Gargantuan, and I didn't even know what was related, I would have thought that's just a random weird ending. That this octopus comes out the water, drags Frankenstein into the water, and he's gone. I would have thought that after fighting Baragon, that's how they take him out. Where I quite like the theatrical ending, because they give him like a heroic ending.
Yeah. Well, Daniel will know this for a fact, because I knew this myself, because I was kind of surprised. But the whole stick behind that is because since this was a Japanese American co-production,
the executives wanted another ending,
yeah,
didn't they? It was Saperstein who
I was
requested
gonna say Henry Saperstein.
an alternate ending for the international cut of the film.
And weirdly, they had the Japanese cut. That was it. You know, they were done. But he wanted this for the international, and it's like, and he had to get all the crew, all the Japanese crew, all the effects guys, all the just to do this one little scene. And it's like, okay, dude, just settle with that scene and just go from there. It's kind of like something that you brought up, sci-fi, with King Kong versus Godzilla. Was that a co-production between Japanese and American? It's not. I mean, it's just an idea that the Americans had, but it's not. But the thing is about that film is people through the decades kept saying there's two different endings to that 62 film. And it's like, what the hell are you talking about? I've seen both versions of this film, and I mean of King Kong versus Godzilla. Like, there's no two endings to it. It's just that the American cut has Kong doing his roar. That's the standalone. But in the Japanese cut, you have Kong and Godzilla making their battle roars. That's it. I mean, there's no different kind of ending. I mean, alternate cut. And I don't know why that keeps coming up, because I'm like, I don't see it, but it's that Mandela effect, basically. I guess that's what it is, thinking that that's what's going on here. So I guess with this ending that Seperstein wanted for Frankenstein Conquers the World, I guess say, well, we got your ending. We okay, that's okay. But for Americans, I guess because we're stupid, I don't know. I guess he figured, like, let's put something else just to give a little kick, a little notch, and that'll pay off in the end, But in a way, that ending actually kind of ties with For the Gargantuans, if you want to see it that way. But again, this is just people put like this: too many cooks in the kitchen, too many people throwing out ideas, and you feel like, okay, is this going to work, or is this going to just it's like kind of like kind of thing? So if you ever do see the alternate,
will it work or will it bust?
Yeah. So if you ever do see the alternate take on that, about the film, you might make your own decision on that. You make your own hypothesis on that.
Well, what can I say? Let's give a final thought on the film. So I'll say this: I love the beginning of this movie. It felt very horror-esque, very Universal monsters meets, like you said, action adventure, Indiana Jones. I love the creativeness of how they could explain how we could get a Frankenstein monster to grow. I love the idea of the Frankenstein's heart from the original monster that's then hit with the atomic bomb. Similar kind of thing to Godzilla, how he was created. Through the aftermath of Hiroshima, we got Godzilla through the atomic blast. Similar things happen with Frankenstein. So it's great how you have these two different monsters that are created through the same form of, creative, means. I like the story. I love how they made Frankenstein sympathetic. I loved, the human characters. I thought they were all interesting. I don't think there was one boring character among them.
Yeah, that's what I like about it as well.
All the characters add to the plot. Nick Adams, I think, is great, and it's great to see him in this because he's a different kind of character to the character he played in Invasion of the Astro Monsters. And at the end, I did think it had pacing issues. I thought the built up. I didn't like the thing with the severed hand. I thought it was just cannon fodder. I think it was just, it was just put in there. It was time wasting. And then when you finally got the fight with Baragon, the payoff was worth it. I thought they were really great battles. And I loved the introduction of Baragon, his first appearance on the farm, fucking killing animals, the chicken feathers. I thought was a great way of introducing a kaiju. And in all, I like this ending I've seen where he had a heroic death after, protecting the humans, and he died the way he died. I thought it was an excellently well put together film. What's your take on it, Walter?
I would have to agree. I mean, this is, and I had to say this. I didn't bring this up before, but this and War of the Gargantuans, as much as these came out at a time when kaiju films were just rambunctious and everything. These have to be the most and just weirdest of all kaiju films I've seen during
So
and
unique.
after, for some reason. I mean, I guess because the simple fact is it has a Caucasian actor in there, maybe, but the end result is that these are the most unusual storytelling kaiju films, and this one is no exception. I mean, it's just like I say, it starts with something that you wouldn't think it was going to start with, and it ends with something like, okay, that's the payoff. It starts from this little seed, grew up into this big old tree, and unfortunately it got cut down, but it was good. We liked it, And just to add insult to injury, when Baragon kills that horse, I was like, oh, they killed the horsey. That's sad. All right, moving on. So, but no, it's a great film, and as you said about the pacing, it could have had a little bit of work on it, but hey, nothing's perfect. Just take it as it is and go from there.
Sci-fi.
I got it. Well, you guys, pretty much said some great points that I was going to mention, and it's definitely a very unique Toho film, bringing in the horror aspect and then the kaiju aspect and then Japanese, and bringing in Nick Adams was great. Kumi Mizuno has always been, she's always great in the movie she comes out in. It's great, man. The story was good. Pacing slowed down towards the middle. Then once we got to the fight, it was a great ending. I mean, I'm pro Baragon. I don't like Frankenstein, but I'm pro Baragon. But what do you call it? Yeah, Baragon looked great. Frankenstein, they made it look real as far as they made it have structure and substance as far as using Frankenstein and making him grow bigger and bigger, because he's just a regular sized horror film monster. But yeah, I mean, I liked everything, man. The way the miniatures, the backgrounds, the special effects, the fire in the background of the last battle, and and adding to also the watching the international. I mean, I'll stick with Frankenstein Conquers the World, but I don't mind the international version with the octopus. But I mean, it's a great, dude. It's Toho Showa era at its best, man. Just bringing in different styles, and I thought it's a great kaiju film, man. It was a great kaiju film, and since it was Baragon's introduction, it was great, man. Great film. All Baragon, bro. Frankenstein, hey, just
Right.
because you're whatever, but nah, bro. I mean, I'm all about pro Baragon, man. But nah, it's a great kaiju film for the time.
Definitely. Daniel.
Well, I'll say this: if you say to someone, "Hey, did you know that they made Frankenstein as a kaiju movie?" They're probably like, "What the okay, so what the fuck is a kaiju movie?" But then when you actually see it, the execution of such a premise, it's actually really good. As you say, it starts off with a very familiar setting. It's gothic. It's a gothic
It's the
aesthetic.
creative way how they brought him in and made him a kaiju. That's what made it great.
Yeah.
It's like what was said right at the beginning of this stream when I said you've got all these hokey pokey fucking low budget B movies, Bigfoot versus Mega Shark, and you're thinking that there's no real smart creative idea input behind it. It's just quick, fast, make a buck B movie crappy films. You know,
Frankenstein
where
Conquers the World is none of that.
yes. The idea of it sounds bizarre, but when you actually watch it, it's a great film and it's a great concept of how they made it and put it together.
Yeah. Again, it's a great concept in both in planning and also in execution. It's also a great mixture of genres, and it also adds in a bit of culture as well, because
Mm-hmm.
keep in mind, war movies, they've been forbidden in Japan, and of course there was still that restriction in place, so there was very tight restrictions on what could and what couldn't be done with regards to war in Japanese cinema. But what they've done in Frankenstein Conquers the World is very clever, where so they've established it's set in the war, but they haven't explicitly showed soldiers dying in the battlefield or being shot in a firefight.
Mm-hmm.
It's all done with the miniature submarine being destroyed, or the aircraft, which I
Oh
think,
yeah, and you had the opening sequence where you had the snow in
yeah,
Germany, and you had like the battlefield, and you could see in the background explosions, but you couldn't see what was happening. But you
yeah,
knew it was set in Germany during the war.
yeah. You also couldn't see any soldiers out there whatsoever. Not a single soul on that battlefield.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's that. It's also got, so it also has great build up, and yes, the pacing, it does hinder the build up in some areas, especially when it comes to Frankenstein hiding out in the tunnels or in caves, because there is a genuinely creepy moment when a boy and his older brother arrive after Baragon's torn through the neighborhood. They find them. They think that their parents are seeking refuge in a cave or a mine that's being worked on, and they just see the silhouette of Frankenstein. That would haunt your dreams for quite some time. I will tell you that the first you watch it for the first time, that imagery will stick with you. It's genuinely creepy, most of it.
Definitely.
But also Baragon's first introduction in this movie, he's actually very brutal with regards to like feasting on animals while tearing through the countryside as well.
Yeah, that's what actually surprised me of how brutal he is. Because I've only seen him in Destroy All Monsters or obviously JMK, where he's basically just a kaiju dog.
Yeah.
That's how he's like a friendly. He's like the Barney the dinosaur of kaiju.
Yeah.
He's like this friendly little thing, and you know, like Doug in the Monsterverse, he is basically the Monsterverse equivalent of Baragon.
Yeah.
And this actually see him be just brutal, and to go into the farm and trash the farm and to kill farm animal and basically not give a shit because he's hungry. I was really taken aback, but I was also thinking you've just upped the level of how cool Baragon actually is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now the endings. For me, seeing the alternate ending first, I'm fine with it. I also like the ending in the other cut, in the theatrical cut, where he has the victory stance and then he falls. Although he's basically killed, he dies victoriously because he's just defeated his rival. Yeah, we get it. You're not a big Frank fan. You're more of a Barry fan. We get it. We get it. You're a Barry guy. Yeah. Whichever ending you see, it's gonna be the great endings. Either way, whether you see them individually or you see them back to back, whether you see the international or the theatrical cut as well.
Definitely, I agree. Even though I've not seen the other ending, like I say, the only thing I would have been puzzled at if I hadn't seen War of the Gargantuans. Say you didn't know that was a follow-up and you watched that, the amazing fight with Baragon and Frankenstein, and then suddenly Frankenstein's killed by a giant fucking octopus that comes out of nowhere, it would have been the most bizarrest ending ever.
Yeah.
But the fact that, you know, it continues in War of the Gargantuans, and that is, if my memory serves me right, as you know, when it comes to the Godzilla Showa film, like, especially when it came from Godzilla versus Moth, you had Rodan, you had Mothra, you had Godzilla 1954, then you had Ghidorah, the three-headed monster, then you had Invasion of the Astrum. All them films are linked and they all basically follow each other, and it's a continuous story. In what you call it, the Frankenstein Conquers the World and War of the Gods, and that's the only other, I think, set of films
They're two of the most standalone.
outside of Godzilla that have a continuation.
Yeah.
They're all connected. They all have a connection. Like all of those two films, certain films have connections, just like Frankenstein Conquers the World and War of the Gargantuas, and then the Godzilla Showa era. And now they're all a part of one. What's it called?
Shared universe.
A shared universe. Yeah, and yeah, man, you're making good sense on it. Yeah.
Because when you think about it, this was the second ever cinematic universe. The first one was back with the Universal Monsters, when after they did Frankenstein and the Wolfman, they made Frankenstein meets the Wolfman. Then they had House of Frankenstein and the House of Dracula and all those others, where they all kept crossing paths, movie after movie. Then, but yeah, I think tapping on to the alternate endings, I think that UPA, although they requested it, I think they made the right decision, because if they didn't say, give us a second ending where an octopus takes Frankenstein into the water, there wouldn't be a War of the Gargantuas.
Or even, well, obviously, because obviously it's the direct sequel, isn't it? And they actually mentioned Frankenstein in the beginning of the War of the Gargantuans. So finally, if you had to rate this out of 10, what would you rate it? I'll start. I like this film, but the pacing issues, the only issues I've got with it, everything else is super great. It's a great film, so I think it's a strong film, but with the pacing issues, I'm going to rate this 7 out of 10.
Cool.
So what would you rate it, Walter?
I will say, well, believe it or not, I will go a little higher than you. I'm actually going to give it an 8. I mean, considering that, as you say, certain things. I mean, the film is a classic in itself, but like any classic, it's got certain things about it that shows his ass. Basically, I'll put it like that. And that's just it, But now I'll give it an 8, because I can't go no higher than that. Because, like I say, the pacing does kind of. Because I'm all about, if the pacing is good, you flow. It flows like a river. You're good. But if it's kind of like stuck like that, man, So no, but I'll give it an 8.
Sci-Fi.
I gotta give it probably 8.5. I give it an 8.5 because it's very unique. Story started off great. I did like Frankenstein's story connection to humanity, but then Baragon just stole the show, and like you all pointed out, like he was, in survival mode, more like a wild animal, and just laying waste to the countryside, and it's the special effects too, man. Like the extra special effects and stages they made to show Frankenstein's actual to show his real size, to show like what he really looks like from a certain standpoint, and then from the bigger standpoint, from like like when he first busted out of the that where they had him caged up, and then they made those sets to like a certain height, a certain like, what I mean, like measuring up. So, but yeah, man, it's everything was just I liked everything about it. And I had the 8.5 because it was Baragon's debut, and I'm a huge Baragon fan. So that's what I'll leave it, man. It's a great film, man. I mean, it's a great sci-fi or blended in together.
Mr. Daniel Miller.
Right. I'd rate Frankenstein Conquers the World, or Frankenstein type Baragon, a 7.5. It has a great story, great actors. It's got a brilliant score by Akira Ifukube, which is effectively repeated in War of the Gargantuas, but it's changed enough so it stands out from being too repetitive.
Yeah.
I give it a 7.5 because where it falls down is, of course, as you've mentioned, would be the pacing. It gets it gets muddled in places where it shouldn't be muddled. And then there are moments when, okay, it's great, you've teased Baragon. Are we going to get any more?
9 out of 10 for J. Cole.
Yeah.
Yep, 9 out of 10. That's good. But yeah, 7.5 out of 10. Great everything. Great score, great directing, great script, even though it wasn't written by Shinichi Sekizawa this time. It was written by
Mr. King. That's his name.
Name. Give me a name.
You do a better job of pronouncing it because I'll butcher it.
Here it is.
I sound like I've had a stroke.
Kimura. That's who it was written by. I mean, he actually did a really good job with the script, Takeshi Kimura. He really did. It's just the pacing in some areas wasn't its strongest. The two endings, I like them both.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, you could watch it. Another thing that I really like about this movie, you could watch it either way. You could watch it as either its own self-contained story where it has a definitive ending with both Frankenstein and Baragon dying, or you can watch the alternate cut and go straight into War of the Gargantuas. It's really no right or wrong. You can really choose whichever way you want to go after seeing it.
Yeah.
Very true. I still, even though I like this, I think I can't remember what I rated for the Gargantuas, but I do think through the battles of that film, it's slightly better than this one.
Yeah,
but still, it's they're still both classics. They're both connected to show our classics that just add to what makes the kaiju genre fun, exciting, unique, and different. But this has been fantastic once again, reviewing another classic kaiju film. And the next one after this is going to be Gappa. And I want all of you guys back to talk about that one because I really like Gappa. It was actually one of the first films I got to see outside of Godzilla. But obviously, with that said, Mr. Daniel Miller, do you have anything coming to your Dan Filming YouTube channel?
Yes. The horror stories, still a work in progress, but progress has been made. I've also gotten, if I can find it, here it is, a proper green screen. So where this is now, that's where I used to shoot the Godzilla vs. Varan stop motions with a tiny sheet of green paper that was very susceptible to creasing and tearing up. But now I've actually upgraded. I don't have to worry about that anymore. So yeah, when I get that sorted, there's going to be hopefully some more stop motions featuring this guy and Varan and the other cast members you see on the shelf behind me. And there's also going to be some more stuff, especially some fiction stories as well. I might also try, don't want to sound too vague, I'll try doing other things as well, because earlier on my channel I made a AVP video game segment where I did an experiment with sound editing. So I might turn my hand to that again in the future. We'll have to wait and see.
And if no one has seen Dan's stop motion Godzilla versus Varan film, I'll go over to Dan Filliman, which is his YouTube channel, and check that out. I have seen it. It was pretty good. And, stop motion is not easy.
No,
It takes a lot of time, a lot of effort. So you've got to appreciate the art in it.
absolutely.
Mr. Walter Ross, is there anything coming to your channel?
Oh my God. This is the thing. I was waiting on something.
Besides any sexual chocolate videos.
Yeah, then well, they'll be look, that's the thing you got to remember. There'll be plenty of special chocolate videos in the future. But one in particular that I was planning on doing, I'm probably gonna have to forgo the one doc because it's gonna be telling about the documentaries of certain films that we enjoy and everything. And I was waiting on one to come in, but it hadn't shown up yet. It should have been here like 2 weeks ago. But I said to myself, you know what? Forget it. I'm just going to focus on the ones that I have already and go from there. Because sometimes you just got to say, well, maybe it's best you don't have it. Maybe sometimes take what you have now and use that because that makes it more creative than what you make.
Absolutely.
Marvelous. I'm looking forward to that. Mr. Sci-Fi Sentry himself, what is coming to the Sci-Fi Society?
Yes, the Sci-Fi Society. I will get with every one of you guys for Underworld. I try to take a break. I try to really, mellow out. But you guys know me, man. I say I'm gonna take a break for a day or two, and I'm already back to okay. I gotta do something. I gotta do this. So, Underworld should be coming towards the end, or maybe hopefully middle part of this month. I will get with all of you guys on that. And if you guys has seen on anybody who watches who is on the Sci-Fi Society group Facebook page or Facebook profile page, I already planned out a few more movies, but that's it for the year. The last are Warriors, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 1990, and the last one, which will probably be Godzilla versus Gigan. So I want to try to get to that before the end of the year by the winter. But
One of
I
my
will have
favorite Showa era films, Godzilla versus Gigan.
yes, I will have Kevin, Walter, Daniel, Jake. I'm gonna try to get you on there, man. So I'll have to get with everyone to see who I can fit because I'm gonna get 6 people. But yeah, that's gonna be a little bit towards the winter. But as far as that, Underworld and Pitch Black are gonna be the ones for. I'll try to get them both in at the end of this month, depending on other appointments and stuff. But that's what I got so far.
Well, as for me in the entertainment headquarters, tomorrow I will be recording my second episodic adventures series, and I'll be reviewing episode 3 and 4 of the new Batman Cape Crusader series. I then will be doing on the 31st of
Hello.
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 Oh, sorry. Yeah, I got getting a phone call. My bad.
Oh, yes,
But on
sorry,
the 30th,
Kevin.
it's okay, my brother. On the 31st of this month, I will actually be doing The Warriors, is a retro classic movie show with my co-host DJ Anubis and my special guest, That Fat Samurai Guy, is making an appearance on the channel.
Nice.
Obviously, the next Kaiju Connections review is going to be Gappa. And I'm also doing with Mr. Anthony Jordan, JJ Anubis, Crypt from Metalomania, and Mr. Tony of the Dead. We will be bringing you next Friday. We will be bringing you the Poltergeist franchise discussion on Into the Darkness. So that is what's coming to the entertainment headquarters for now. Obviously, I'm going to plan more streams. I'm going to plan a lot more content, especially to get you guys involved on the channel. But as you know, as Mr. Walter Ross always says, Mr. Sexual Chocolate.
Right.
This has been the entertainment headquarters. This has been Kaiju Connections. And as he always says, keep the kaiju love
Oh,
alive.
sir, always.